You ever wake up to the sound of diesel engines growling just outside your front porch way too early, before the sun's even had a chance to climb up proper and realize your whole damn life is about to change? That's how my morning started. Bulldozer idling by the gate. Yellow excavator sealing off the only dirt road in or out. And me standing there, boots still muddy from yesterday, staring down at a blockade that wasn't there the night before. I stepped off the porch, heart thumping, hands shaking with that old familiar anger you get when something's just flat out wrong. You're blocking a private farm. I called out, voice steadier than I felt. The woman who answered well. She looked like she'd stepped straight out of a magazine. Red suit sharp as a razor. Beige heels sunk an inch into the gravel. She didn't blink, just pointed at my gate. Close it now. And with a clatter of chains. It was locked. Just like that. She lifted a stack of papers. Neat as can be. County eviction order. She said, voice flat as a board. You've got 24 hours to leave. I told her it was my land. She smiled small. Cold. The kind that tells you you're already losing. Not anymore. She said, according to these filings, it's abandoned county property. Then she froze, saw the bullpen gate open. My old bull snorting. Head down. Tail twitching. She started to run. But those fancy heels slipped. And she didn't make it. That bull slammed right into her BMW. Metal crunching. Glass flying. The whole car rocking side to side like a toy in a toddler's hand. Over the mess, she shrieked. Get that bull locked up. And you don't own this land anymore. Name was Evelyn Cross. President of Redfield Ridge Homeowners Association. Not the kind of president who cares about votes or neighbors. She ran things with paperwork, and the quiet threat of foreclosure slipped into your mailbox before you'd even had coffee. She never needed to raise her voice. She spoke like the world was a board game she already had mapped out. Outcome written in pen. Your piece already swept off the table. That morning, she walked my property, giving orders surveyors. Fence line. Points marked. Like the ground itself belonged to her. This boundary shifts here, she said. And here. HOA reclassifying for community safety. She said safety like a weapon, her mouth twisting around the word, like it meant something bigger than what the rest of us understood. Truth was, safety had nothing to do with it. She wanted my land for a commercial deal already lined up. All hush-hush, but worth a fortune. She gave me a choice sign over the property voluntary like. Or she'd lean it. Foreclose. And let the system grind me down till I caved. Didn't even glance at the little wooden marker by the Finsamy wife's grave. Or the old house we'd built together. To her, those were just details in the way of profit. The eviction notice didn't come in the mail. It was taped to my gate. Bright orange. Snapping in the wind. Right where those chains had rattled that morning. HOA violation. Unsafe livestock. Threat to public safety. Less than 3 hours after the tow truck dragged off her smashed-up BMW. According to that notice, my bull was now a dangerous animal, and my farm a hazard zone pending review. Your retaliation. Dressed up in legal words. By noon, a couple of guys in reflective vests showed up in a county sedan. Cameras rolling. They didn't measure a thing, just snapped photos of the fence. The bullpen. The dented gravel where her car had taken a beating. One of them stuck a sign in my yard, restricted access. HOA oversight. I told them to take it down. MS. Cross authorized the designation. They said, that night, I found my secondary gate chain shut. When I cut the chain, another violation showed up an hour later, tampering with safety controls. After dark, my south fence collapsed. One post snapped. 2 cows out wandering the neighbor's field. On paper, it was an accident. But you don't live on land your whole life and not recognize payback when you see it. The board moved fast. By next morning, certified letter in my mailbox. Stamped with the HOA seal. Emergency board resolution. Enacted overnight. No vote. No signatures. Just Evelyn's name at the bottom. Bold as brass. HOA had called an emergency sesame farm under temporary administrative control pending review. Temporary funny word. Does a lot of lying. Attached was an invoice. Safety mitigation assessment fee. 5 figures. Due in a week. If unpaid, they'd lien the property. I drove to town, stormed into the management office. Receptionist slid a new document across the counter, fresh guidelines. Livestock rules, access restrictions, penalties. Every word, every line, tailor-made for me. That afternoon, things got physical. Crew shut off my water. Inspection hold. An hour later, my barn power went dead. Utility company said HOA flagged it as a safety precaution. Evelyn called it sunset. See how this works now? Voice was sweet, almost gentle. Sign the transfer and it all goes away. I told her she didn't have the authority. She just laughed. We do. When the board agrees. And when you're the problem, the board always agrees. That's when it hit me. His wasn't just her. The system itself had stepped onto my land. So I stopped reacting. Started digging. If they were coming at me this hard, there was a reason. Pulled out my laptop. Old files. The box of paperwork I'd saved since my wife passed. Buried in the county's digital records was a probate filing for my land, me name. My wife's name. Claimed the property was part of an unresolved estate. Flagged for abandonment. Total lie. My wife's estate was settled years ago. The filing's timestamp didn't match any courthouse hours. The notary ID? Belonged to someone retired for 2 years. Then I followed the money. A consulting firm called Redfield Land Advisory, never heard of them, had been paid $150,000 in consulting fees, all tied to HOA's safety initiative. Their address led to a shell company, which pointed to a developer piecing together land for a project down the highway. There was a map. My farm. Dead center. And that wasn't the worst, no. What broke me was the red survey flag planted behind the barn, right by the old oak. The one shading my wife's grave. Marked for removal. I stood in the dark, staring at that flag. It wasn't safety. It was a land grab. And to Evelyn Cross, my life, me wife's resting place, were just boxes to check off for someone else's profit. Next morning, I went straight to county offices. No shouting. Just facts. Clerk pulled up my file. Frowned. Scrolled. Then leaned in like she was reading a ghost story. That probate flag? Filed digitally. 3 weeks ago. Approved automatic Clino in-person review. I asked her to check the access logs. She hesitated. Then did it. One username. Again and again. Not the probate department. Not a clerk, an external county contractor. Logging in late at night. She said records were valid unless I got a court order. Digital beats paper. These days, even if it's wrong, you need a judge to fix it. I left. Went straight to my lawyer. He laid out the documents. Tapped his pen against the screen. Notary seal was off. Signature chain didn't match. One statute cited didn't even exist anymore. This is coordinated, he said. Somebody knows the system. By the time I got back to the farm, county vehicle was parked near my gate. Code enforcement. Unsafe conditions. Pending review. No deadlines. No appeals. Just pressure. Evelyn called again. I hear you're shopping for judges, she said. Casual as you please. Won't help. You're fighting the system, and the system always wins. She hung up before I could even answer. But holding that notice, I realized something she didn't expect. Systems leave trails. And I was done asking permission to follow them. The break came from a place I never expected. Email. 2:17 a.m. From an address I didn't recognize. Subject line, you deserve the truth. It was a board member, one of the quiet ones. Never spoke up. All he wrote, I can't be part of this anymore. Use it fast. Attachments told the whole story. Internal emails. Payment schedules. Signed consulting agreements. Maps. All showing my land as the keystone to an 8-figure deal once it was cleared. Demo window scheduled next week. Excavator already booked. By sunrise. I'd gathered it all: evidence. Invoices. Logs. The map with my wife's grave circled like a problem to erase. And I sent it not to the board, not to Evelyn, but to every homeowner email I could find. Subject. What the HOA isn't telling you. Replies flooded in. Shock. Anger. Neighbors asking if their land was next. Someone sent it to the county. Someone looped in the sheriff. Evelyn called 3 times. I didn't pick up. Then, a message. All caps. Emergency meeting tonight. Community hall. Followed by, "You've made a serious mistake. This ends tonight." I stood at my gate, watched the sun rise, and felt the moment settle in. No backing down. No compromise. Community hall was packed shoulder to shoulder. Folks pressed in, voices low, eyes on the front where Evelyn sat behind a table. Red blazer perfect. Hands on a stack of folders like nothing was wrong. She started fast. "This individual has trespassed repeatedly. Endangered residents. Ignored lawful orders. I request immediate removal." But before she could get momentum, the doors at the back opened, boots on tile. Official as hell. County council stepped in. Deputies behind her. A woman with a briefcase. "Hold this meeting. No one leaves." Evelyn snapped. "This is an HOA matter." The councilwoman just stared her down. "Not anymore." She laid a tablet on the table. Tapped the screen. Timeline. Dates. Access logs. File names. All right there for the whole room. "Let's start with the probate filing," she said. "Submitted by a contractor, credential not authorized by this department." She tapped again. "Bank transfers. Consulting fees. All routed through Redfield Land Advisory." HOA internal emails, Evelyn's name on every thread. A board member stood up, voice shaking. "She told us it was a safety review. She never mentioned a sale." The council nodded, brought up the map. "My farm. Dead center." This wasn't reclassification. It was a coordinated attempt to seize land for profit. Evelyn's voice. Panicked now. That map was preliminary. Nothing was approved. Council didn't even look at her. Preliminary doesn't come with demolition schedules. Evelyn tried to push her chair back. Voice rising. "You're twisting this. It's not what you think." Council finally looked at her. Stone cold. "Then explain this." She tapped, and the email thread filled the wall. Evelyn's words. Timestamped. Unmistakable. Excavator confirmed. Demo window secured. Property must be cleared before title review. The room drew in a breath. Evelyn opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Her armor cracked. "I was trying to protect the community," she said, almost whispering. Councilwoman stood. "No. It was a target." Nodded to the deputies. Evelyn Cross. "You are under arrest for forgery of public records, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit property theft." The cuffs clicked loud in the quiet. As they led her away, she didn't fight, didn't scream, just stared straight ahead. That red blazer finally looking rumpled, like the fight had gone out of it. No one rushed for the exits. People stayed put, letting the room breathe. A woman in the front wiped her eyes. A man in back let out a sigh like he'd been holding it for years. Then one by one, folks stood up, neighbors I'd waved at for decades, but never really knew. "I'm sorry," one said, voice trembling. "I knew something was off. I just didn't think I could fight it." Another. Then another. Stories of threats. Unexplained fines. Cameras installed. A man handed the council a flash drive. "She made me install cameras. I kept copies." The energy changed, lighter. Almost fragile. But real. For the first time in weeks. My shoulders dropped. Not victory. Not celebration, just relief. Like the truth had finally landed. Council turned on her speakerphone. Set it on the table. A voice. Calm and official. Read out the charges. Announced that the commercial project was frozen. All permits voided. All land actions canceled. Effective immediately. The voice said, "Redfield Ridge HOA is prohibited from reclassifying private property or placing liens without homeowner consent. Third-party verification. And county review. Refunds coming. Liens lifted." The board looked like they might puke. I felt it. Deep security. For the first time since those engines showed up. The ground felt solid again. No speeches. No applause. Just the sound of chairs scraping and people standing tall. One of the deputies handed me an envelope, the original deed. Stamped. Verified. I laid it on the table for all to see. Not a challenge. Just the truth. Put back where it belonged. Someone near the window whispered, "It's really over." Outside, the air was cool. No engines. No chains. No warnings. I drove home. Unlocked my gate. Swung it wide. And let it stay open. At the edge of the pasture. The old oak stood shade falling over my wife's grave. Survey flag gone. Someone had set it gently against the fence. I stayed a while, breathing it all in. Closed the gate behind Minute because I had to, but because it was my choice again. See, land remembers who stands up for it. They tried to erase my life with paperwork and pressure. But it turns out, sometimes justice shows up right on time even if you've got to drag it into the light yourself. If someone tried to wipe out everything you'd built with a few keystrokes and a handful of threats, would you stand and fight? Or would you walk away? Drop your thoughts below. Where do you draw the line between right and wrong? Between power and justice? And if you've lived through anything like this, tell your story. Let's see how many folks have been on the losing end of someone else's power play.